Yeah.
Driveline R&D podcast, episode 18, coming at you a little bit jankier than ever. Missing Anthony Brady, our co-host. Show the main host, Alex Caravan, is here. Co-swag manager of Baseball Analytics. And our overlays may look janky. We don't know yet because we haven't put them on. So definitely stay posted for that on the video. But what do we got?
What are you drinking?
Oh, yeah, I'm drinking okay, so I told you I was going to drink a dirty chai latte, spiked, and I ran out of time to go grab me one.
So it is tea.
No. I made a homemade. Okay, so first of all, I know how a dirty chai latte is made. I read espresso, but didn't have espresso. So what I did is I made chai, and then on top of that, I poured a steaming hot cup of some blueberry vanilla K-cup mix I have, and haven't put it on yet, but gonna add a little bit of monkey shoulder. I think the last shot in here. Yeah. I'm sure my roommate Max doesn't mind. I'll try to leave a little bit, but yeah. What do you got?
For sure, episode 18.
Yeah. Don't ever question me again on it.
I'm Kyle Lindley,
yeah,
R&D engineer, Driveline Baseball. Nice Caravan. I'm drinking a Budweiser today. That's all I got in the fridge again. Ran a little bit thin on beer the last couple episodes, but yeah.
Oh yeah, that blood orange cider you got last time.
Yeah. It wasn't as bad as it could have been worse for sure. But
that's what I'm thinking about this as well. It could have been worse.
Yeah,
it's just very watery. It's very watery.
Blueberry and whiskey doesn't sound super good.
Yeah, and ironically, as you said that, I realized the only flavor I can taste is the blueberry.
Oh, you can't taste the whiskey?
A little bit, but
nice.
The only actual flavor. Yeah, so we're like I said, Anthony's stocked up with a bunch of Arizona logistics stuff. So we'll if you guys are huge fans of hearing about the logistical nightmares or pseudo nightmares of running a second facility, tune into last episode. Otherwise, let's just get into it. We have a couple. Lindley has a couple pending and future thinking Biomech stuff. We're just kind of like talk it out for myself as well. I haven't really I've heard some of these, some of them I'm familiar with, but some of them it's things that Lindley and I were going to talk about honestly, anyways. So this is a good way for me to check off some work related to dos. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah. So first, I'll start with some of the things, kind of updates. So I think it was 2 episodes ago. I talked about how I was doing a kind of a biomechanics investigation about energy transfer and the energy transfer between pelvis and torso, and a further taking that further our future work on that once that was wrapped up. Okay, well, let's try comparing rotational kinetic energy of the arm or of the humerus and see if that trend continues and if we can start to explain more variance in velocity. And so just yesterday, Joe helped me out with being able to rerun a bunch of biomechanics data, because how that works.
Do you want to do a quick recap of what energy transfer is, like how you calculated it?
Okay, yeah. So energy transfer, and there's a few different ways. I know it's like some other people measure or calculate it a bit differently, but for us, it's just the peak rotational kinetic energy in all 3 axes. So it's just it's just when it peaks, taking into account all 3 directions of the torso and the pelvis. So rotation, tilt in the anterior and posterior forward direction, and also laterally. So rotational kinetic energy incorporates mass and rotational velocity. So the peak was found for the pelvis and the torso, and then the difference between those was I defined as energy transfer. So peak torso, rotational kinetic energy minus peak pelvis. And so that value was compared to velocity, and we found that it was very correlated. And we also found some differences in hip shoulder separation. But because it was so correlated with velocity and it explained a lot of that variance, when we talk about the kinetic chain in pitching, we are talking about how we move energy from the proximal segments to the distal segments, and in this case, to the arm is the distal segment that or the hand basically that we're talking about. So I wanted to take that one step further, and we didn't have the metrics calculated in our current Biomech database. So our director, Joe Marsh, got me started with some ways to rerun a bunch of the data we already have and adding new, like another metric if we wanted to look at it. So I did that with the humerus.
So were you into pipeline? Because for a lot of people that don't know, or like a lot of it, hopefully, hopefully, a decent ratio of our listeners are decently into biomech stuff, and we didn't lose them right off the bat. But
yeah,
I was gonna say like from my end, which I'm familiar with biomech stuff, but obviously I'm not a biomechanist. I've worked with quite a bit of biomechanics, but a lot of what goes into calculating the metrics is you guys have like the model set up from where the markers are, and based on you like do a bunch of formulas and equations in C3D or Visual 3D, and that like builds the model. So like based on you like that way you calculate torque, forces, kinetics, all that stuff. So a lot of times you have to go into the like a lot of biomechanics. At least from what I've seen, is setting up models in pretty clunky languages based on positional data. So then you impute, like you do like physics formulas, or appropriate physics formulas based on the data you have. And from that, you calculate metrics. And then like that's kind of how it works. So you did that. You got into the pipeline and added a couple metrics.
Yeah. So it's basically the pipeline is basically just a bunch of functions that's like, all right, I want to calculate a joint position or a joint velocity or a joint force. And in this case, I want to calculate a segment energy. And then it just has like a bunch of things that it does to calculate that. You just tell it what you want to calculate it on. So I just say like one end of the pipeline said, I want to calculate the rotational kinetic energy of the humerus because that wasn't being calculated already. And then this is the time period that I want to calculate it for. And then I go in and say, then you do another one of those and say, I want to find the peak of that signal. And that's going to be the metric that I use for this. So it's kind of involved and it gets pretty convoluted, especially with a bunch of people working on it. But Joe has a really good grasp on it. So he's able to help me out there. So basically you just loop through like we have these 150 athletes or something like that.
In the newest pipeline, we've had a few iterations of pipelines. I think this is pipeline V5.
Yeah, so everybody since I think the latest is like, or the earliest I think is like December or something. So
yeah, mid-December. Just remember too.
Yeah, so athletes who have been assessed in our lab after December, we have their motion capture data, and then we go through and calculate these things for each one of those people, and then we can output them into text files, put them into a big table, and then do comparisons. So that's what I was doing yesterday. And then this morning I did another comparison and found that the rotational kinetic energy of the humerus did not actually explain very much variance or at like any variance at all in pitch velocity. And they actually had less rotational kinetic energy than the torso. So the whole kinetic chain, as we like talk about it, is that you're gaining or you're transferring energy from inferior segments to superior segments. So from the torso to the arm, but in the measure that I chose,
and why is like the arm referred to as a superior segment?
Because it's like farther out to the end of the chain. So the start of the chain would be like at the ground or at your pelvis, and then the end of the chain would be the hand, or the ball, which is where we're trying to like convey the force. So the force that we get from the ground and create with our midsection, we're trying to transfer out to the ball to throw as hard as we can. And so I'm kind of working through with Dean some other ideas about how we can try to quantify energy, because this idea is pretty been like a lot of it's a pretty common thing in biomechanics that the kinetic chain is important. It is a thing, but what I just tried to compare or what I just tried to analyze basically says that that's not really the case. So it's probable that I'm just like measuring it wrong. So
I mean, it also seems like it's so hard. And honestly, I was kind of impressed when you came up with a thesis on how to define energy transfer. But because to me at least, and maybe that's just like my background, but to me at least, like when I read Dean's initial request or question, I didn't really have a clue where to start. I wasn't sure if like he'd worded it poorly or if I was like missing something. We're on the same page. But like for me, like if you told me, does energy transfer correlate with pitching velocity? I wouldn't know where to start at all. You know, so I'm saying even like the specific, I think you went about defining it in a you know, like well thought out way. But I don't even know if that's what like the way other people define it, like the people that talk about it. Do you know what I mean? Do you feel like
exactly.
do you also kind of think the same thing? Like a lot of people might have completely different definitions of energy transfer.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that we talked about Wasserberger's work. I think he defined it as a rate of energy transfer. So how fast does energy transfer from segment to segment, which I'm not exactly sure how he did that, but mine wasn't a rate. It was just like an absolute difference between peaks, which is definitely not the best way to do it. And part of this was like Mike had brought up a question about, is there a way that we can quantify, like put one like similar to an Arsenal score?
And that's Dirty Mike Rathwell, our CEO.
Yeah. Similar to the Arsenal score, where we can give you a number based on how like good your pitches are, how well they play. Is there a number that we can create to describe how efficient you are with your kinetic chain? Like how much of your potential from your force, I don't know, the force that you're creating from the ground, how efficient are you at getting that to the hand? So this was kind of an extension to get closer to that, but didn't really seem to get much closer. Still working through it with Dean, but
I was going to interrupt you real quick. Are you saying you didn't get closer because you don't feel like there's a clear model that we should be using, or are you saying that just because you didn't find a relationship like that was guesstimated?
Yeah, it was just that my first or like next attempt at furthering our model didn't seem to improve the model at all. So what I think the next step probably is to incorporate the rest of the arm instead of just the humerus, which is just like your upper arm between your shoulder and your elbow. Instead of that, because it's such a small segment, that's why the kinetic energy is so low.
Hey, small for you, bro.
That's true. Maybe we just need to beef some of these guys up. Anyways, just incorporating the whole arm and the hand and the ball instead, because the ball is where a lot of the like load is going to be on the body. So it's possible that if we incorporate the rest of the arm instead of just the humerus, that this comparison or this model does actually improve. So
do you have any thoughts on bringing this with what Joe had been working on for a while? I don't know if he still is, with the computed muscle control model. Do you know if like that like could be a potential source of bolstering the model, and B, do you know any updates to that? Because I don't know. I haven't talked to Joe about it in a while.
I don't know. The problem with the computed muscle control model is that it's so complex. You kind of have to focus on one joint at a time, unless you like have spent years and years developing it. Because, for example, just for the, actually, I think it might take into account the shoulder. So yeah, but there's like 14 different variables just in like one joint or just in the arm, and we're like one of a couple groups maintaining this model and trying to improve it. So yeah, I think computer muscle control could be really cool. The way that I see that applying is if we can apply it to the midsection and try to relate it to energy transfer, we can figure out what muscles are creating this energy transfer, which would be really cool. But as far as like progress there, I think with Modus and everything, we haven't been able to push that much further, but I know that Joe's recreated some of the work we've seen in publications so far. So,
speaking of midsection, I actually meant to ask you this before the podcast, but have you been getting in a better shape? Do you feel like with the running?
I think so, a little bit. Yeah. I didn't see any differences at the first couple of weeks, but I think it's just taking some time for that to like take effect. But yeah, especially as the runs get a little bit longer, I think I'm probably losing a little bit of weight.
Are you like noticeably? But like, can you tell? Do you feel like an impact on the rest of your life? Like, are you like less winded when walking upstairs? Like more springy? Like anything like that, or no?
I'm more springy for sure. Like running specific though, I don't really notice it in any other like activities.
Yeah. I was gonna say, at least for me, like sometimes when I go through phases where I like work out more, work out less. Like I just feel like a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, well, I also always feel like more sore and stuff too, but I always feel like more kind of like, I don't know, like physically I feel more in shape sometimes.
Yeah. I actually noticed a bigger difference. I was Rooney got me on a strength program for like 3 months or
The
4
last
months
couple months.
before the marathon, and I
Oh,
was feeling the best like
yeah.
almost ever after
That's when
that.
we're working out, right?
Yeah. And I just like my hips and my back didn't have any pain because I was like strengthening muscles that I don't usually when I like create my own workouts. So I was tight.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we haven't made overlays too, yeah, we can slide in here. We'll slide into personal life updates, post like 10 minutes biomech info dump.
Yeah, the info dump that's like extremely intense. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, you're good. I think we talk about, we can shoot around a couple time signal normalizations. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but
Mhm.
essentially what we've talked about before and what we do have some publications out there on. And first off, definitely read what we have there right now. I've long dragged my feet on updating the public research available, mostly from constantly us getting more data and just like a priority point of view with everything that has like stricter deadlines. But essentially, we've used like statistical parameter mapping, which again, I don't want to go too deep in explaining it, but essentially it plots differences across like time signals. So, we measure people in the lab based by frame, and we can like overlay those frames. We kind of adjust them a little bit so they're on a similar scale, and then we plot differences, and like differences will show up like based on like what's significant, what's not significant. And honestly, right now, if I can throw up, I'll just throw up a quick. Can I share my screen? Oh,
Yeah.
try to hook it up.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah, I'll just throw up actually even the I'll throw up our first blog. I was gonna say, keep not break any news on Zoom on
For the
Zoom
weighted
screen
ball
sharing the
study.
podcast. But yeah, that's what I was gonna do. But yeah, no. So this is what it looks like when you.
Also, you should probably introduce it first, and I can.
Yeah, what, can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
and
So
your
full signal,
billion tabs, dude.
dude. Listen, I told you. Don't
Are you
forget
on my
to.
Twitter?
What's up?
Are you on my Twitter?
Let's see. Nope. Get your ass right, bro. I never go on your Twitter, dog. I don't know if I wanted to see someone with triple digit amounts of followers. I could go to other people's Twitters, dude.
I
I
think
only
you
look
might
at
have
people that
gotten
have
me
at
a
least
couple
1,000.
followers. I think you might have gotten me a couple followers. Someone did because I just got like 5 follows
Yeah.
today.
Oh, after I retweeted your interview on Finding the Edge.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I started listening to the beginning of it. But did you listen to mine by any chance?
I didn't listen to yours. No, I had to
Uh,
stop listening to mine too.
I was gonna say I think it'd be interesting. We actually should ask. We should ask people who had who had the better interview, because I listened to the beginning of yours and I was like, oh, I could easily see this getting like super technical, like I thought mine did.
Yeah. It
Like
got a
mine.
little bit. It got a little bit into the weeds when we started talking about motor learning. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. But anyways, Garrett or Robert, if you guys are listening, DM Anthony whose interview was better, whose podcast interview was better, and then he'll either choose to disclose or not disclose that information. But that way we won't know. We won't know who said it. So all we'll know is Brady will tell us, oh yeah, I heard from either one of them or both of them that so and so's is better. So that way we'll preserve some anonymous tips. But anyways, so full signal is kind of what it looks like. Really, honestly, I think this visual is pretty good because I could spend quite a bit of time trying to explain it. But essentially, the red line in this case were the harder throwers in our group. The black line were the softer throwers, and the blue line represents foot plant. We just scaled around foot plant in this instance. Lindley's been doing a lot of like even fuller windows, looking at like changes across the whole pitching motion. And I think this was friendly angular velo, and the red line here, this difference right here is significant. This is what the second graph represents if something is significant. So it kind of scales up above the cutoffs for the standard deviations, which are usually around like 2. It scales above that, and the shaded area above it represents the like whether significant or like the area that's significant. So anyways, we've been talking about stuff like that. We've been talking about like just doing normalizations across all the full pitching motion. What was your idea, Lindley, that you'd like that you were kind of like loosely pitching me on or just bringing up?
Oh yeah. So like since people take different amounts of time getting through their pitching motions, like somebody might be able to get through their pitching motion in 3/4 of a second, whereas somebody might take a full second. And the way that you can compare their pitch is that you like either stretch the shorter one or shrink the longer one so that the start and the end of their pitch is at the same time. And there's some debate whether or not that's a valid process, because if you distort the time periods, their like pitching cycle, like the time period, it's like you kind of lose its what's the word I'm looking, I don't know, you just like lose its validity in some cases because he's actually moving faster than this or he's actually moving slower than this. So is it actually valid to compare between people? And what I was thinking is maybe like, because the current gold standard is to just identify certain like events in the throw,
Yeah.
like standard events that you can compare, such as front
like
foot strike.
Foot plant,
Yes.
ball release, where like the lead knee height is reached.
Yeah. Or when your shoulder's most externally rotated. So you just basically take snapshots at those periods, and you can say either, okay, we're going to find the mean between these periods or like during these phases, or we're going to find the value at these events. And so what I was thinking is if we could kind of take, and so part of the way that we've alleviated the problem of time normalization and changing the time like periods is by like Caravan was saying, okay, we're going to compare these signals like 20 frames before foot plant and 20 frames after, or 30 frames, whatever. And so that way we're not changing the time period at all between for guys' throws. So what I was thinking is maybe comparing the full signal where we do have to change the time series, and then compare the results to those where we don't change the time series by either looking at discrete like time points or X frames before, X frames after this standardized time point, and then seeing like, do we find significant in both cases? Are they similarly significant? Like, are they significant for the same amount of time or the same normalized amount of time? And then the more that matches up, the more we can be confident that changing the pitching cycle length to match up between people is going to be valid and is a valid comparison, because we don't actually know that yet.
Yeah. And this kind of also started a little bit when Lynn and I were talking about this a week or two ago, because I was pretty surprised at how seemingly stable indicators like foot plant were, because I was expecting there to be a little bit of variability. I mean, and there was a little bit, but you returned me like the mean and then the plotted like confidence intervals, and it was a much tighter band than I was expecting. So I'm pretty optimistic. And I think it's like something really interesting. And dude, I gotta get my SPM blog too out. I just got to. I get so hyped out every time I talk about it. Yeah, I just got to get it out.
I finished mine. I finished the weighted ball one, but I don't want to. I don't want it to be published before we get the.
Yeah, exactly. You like that's like the man. Yeah.
I have a gauge tracking blog that's waiting to be published too. I don't know what the holdup is on that.
Yeah. I hopped the. I mean, literally the only blogs I've been publishing, all of them I decided to publish like the day before, because like the string profile one. And then College War one, which we can talk about in a second. But yeah, we like started writing that up like 2 days before, pushed it out, and then like SPM blog literally been writing for 5 months. Nothing in the last 3.
That's
but
funny.
Yeah,
we could talk about the WAR model and the draft right now if you want. Did you guys end up publishing the full blog, or did you just do an abbreviated one to get it out before the draft?
Honestly, kind of in between. We were initially just going to do what I was honestly thinking for Besky's sake was just like an even quicker write-up. But the write-up we ended up doing was like 2,500 to 3K words. And we took a little bit out of it. Because I think Mike thought we were being almost too overly specific, and also just, at that point, might as well just put like, it was too like specific of a roadmap.
It's easy to get caught in between. Like, you're trying to make it simple
Yeah.
enough or short enough, but also like give enough details. It's easy to get between the two
Yeah.
like extremes.
Yeah, so which we definitely try to finagle that. Which feel free to give us some feedback if you feel like we did a good job or didn't do a good job. Although honestly, like most of it has been taken up by the dashboard, which has gotten really good feedback, which I've been hyped about. The tricky thing of the dashboard is, and I don't know how many people like really know this, or it might honestly just be people that mess around with Shiny apps themselves. Shiny apps have like a fair bit of pros, which is why as a company.
I'm not even super familiar. Shiny app is just like a interface through R, right? You write things in R and then you can put them up on an R server.
It's basically like a very quick shortcut for R like user interface. So you don't have to worry about setting up an HTML, CSS page, setting up like the front end functionality, whether that's JavaScript, whether that's whatever, having that communicate to a program, having the script spit out the numbers that you then populate onto the front end page. Because for like most web apps, is how it works. You have the front end web page that the person sees, then based on what you do on that page, whether you submit something, click something, move something, that communicates something to the server. And usually there'll be like another script, maybe in PHP, maybe something else. Again, depends totally on your infrastructure. I'm kind of here like talking very, very high level. And that server like communicates it back to whatever the backend script is. Again, whether in Python, whatever. And that script will run the desired output. And then the output will get spat back and then populated back onto the web page. So Shiny is a really easy way to do everything but the back end and like a couple lines of code. It just wraps everything up and then spits it out. Which is where our dashboard is on, and I'll drop a link in the episode and stuff. Although honestly, I'm assuming most people that listen to this podcast have seen a dashboard, because already more people have used the dashboard than
your podcast.
Yeah. But no, I mean it's gotten a lot of good feedback, and by a lot of good feedback, honestly, I just even mean people have like noticed it and liked it and seem to think it makes sense, because I haven't expected too much like tangible breakdowns of everything, or at least like not at this stage, because it does take a little bit of time to adjust. And if you're gonna give critical feedback, you probably want to read a blog, and the blog takes a little bit of time to adjust. But like, I mean, Tom Tango gave us a little bit of feedback, which I saw after the fact. I think Dan went back and forth with him a little bit, but he brought up a good point, and something we semi-acknowledged the limitations already, but the positional adjustments are probably a little too conservative. Tango probably thinks they're much too conservative. I think it's probably not as conservative as he thinks. And then also, one thing we definitely mentioned the limitations, and I've talked about like last week, was the fielding adjustments can be pretty severe because we're like dealing with so much uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
We just prefer to like regress heavier to the mean rather than like accidentally dock or boost someone up much too much,
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So Tango's actual feedback was, Tango's point was our positional adjustments were too conservative because we didn't treat things like second base for shortstop as huge of a distinction. When in fact, between like the elite middle infielders, the vast majority of the ones who get drafted in, say, the first round are shortstops. So clearly, like there's something there that teams value at that level. Being able to play shortstop is.
And you're saying that you're saying that you guys didn't adjust like for it was like middle infield.
Oh no, we did.
Position?
We do have positional adjustments. We're just saying they weren't severe enough.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But anyways, no, we're pretty happy with it. I just saw actually like an hour ago, Purdue University retweeted a dashboard with like more figures from their own players, and that's actually what I was thinking. Look, we can even get excited. We can even get like schools excited. Specifically, I was gonna put together a list after the draft of the top cWAR players that have gone undrafted, And you know what's crazy, dude? Kerstad going second, who we'd
Right
written a
after the
D1
write-up.
profile. We'd written a D1 profile and released it that morning. And Kerstad went second. I was telling Tosh, Kerstad, if you're listening to this, man, the moment I get your Venmo, I'm about to Venmo charge you $1 million, dude. Because I mean, I can put 2 and 2 together, bro. And I wrote the majority of that profile. So I'm Venmo charging you $1 million, man. And listen, if you want to haggle, we can haggle. But I'm starting at $1 million, and then we can go from there. Because
That's so funny.
Kerstad ended up going second.
To the Orioles too, right? So I wonder
Yeah.
if that had gone out earlier. I wonder if Sig and the Orioles would have tripped out at all. Be like, we weren't trying to like let people know that this guy was
Yeah. Just
top
DM'd me.
topic.
Yeah. Sig Venmo's me $1 million to take the profile down.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. How
But
did it like compare to the draft order or like bonus money though? Because that's like a kind of a form of
yeah.
like validation or just like like cool comparison, right?
Yeah. I haven't done anything on a bonus money yet. Yeah, I did I just put together a quick plot of the cWAR against the actual order players went. So excluding high school players because they didn't have cWAR. But, okay, I tweeted out yesterday or 2 days ago. But it looked pretty – if anything, it just looked pretty clumped because both pitchers and hitters there was a top tier of cWAR, and they happened to be the first, 3 to 4 players taken off anyways. It wasn't necessarily in that order. I think Nick Gonzalez had the most cWAR. I think I was doing 2019 plus 2020 to account for, I didn't want to do 1/3 of a season. But Gonzalez, Torgelson, and Kerstad all had the most WAR, and they went the top 3 hitters off the board. And then I think there's a drop. And then similarly for pitchers, the first couple, Meyer, Lacey, the other 2 had the most WAR, and then it dropped down. But yeah, like I said, I've been pretty happy with the feedback. Gotten a lot of DMs, gotten a lot of really good questions. Because if anything, I want to. It's something that isn't publicly out there. So even if the only thing we ever did was push the conversation, I'd be also I would think that's a positive thing in and of itself. But no, it's gone really good feedback, and it's technically TBD exactly what the next steps are, but we have a few. And I mean, pretends by the time this podcast episode comes out, we'll have a little bit more distinction. But yeah, no, I've been really happy with it. And like I said, people have been checking their own WAR, trying to guess who they would think the WAR leaders are. And I'm more than happy to take the qualitative assessment as well. Someone that played with a bunch of teammates. My old roommate Jacob Garcia, who's now the volley at West Virginia, said he guessed everyone in order. So
that's crazy.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that is really cool. I also just in general, do you guys think that just analytics output has been from Driveline as a whole has been increased since the whole analytics department has kind of solidified in the last few months? It's just cool seeing this type of stuff because I feel like we have the data, we have the know-how. You guys are really talented. I feel like getting out even some papers as well, starting with things like your Saber paper, we could easily start pushing more of that stuff out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's that's why I encouraged the Shiny app. I said and Melanie Bell worked a lot on the Shiny app. She's part-time R&D, part-time kind of business data as well, business data analytics. But I just said there's a ton of stuff we do, and we do it only internally, and that helps our trainers, improve our athletes' performance and all this stuff. But I still think it sells our clout kind of short in that area because we do a ton of cool stuff, and some of that goes into software tools that will hopefully be live on track as soon as next week. We can probably talk about it in the next podcast. But there's a ton of development stuff that goes there. There's a ton of stuff behind the scenes. There's a ton of stuff that us interacting with partnerships with other companies. We provide analytics to them. But yeah, I agree that a lot of it is maybe a little bit lost on the public. And we have so many different areas that we just kind of stop just short, right? Like a good example is I'm talking about this SBM blog that I haven't released. like you mentioned, the saber paper that I still haven't put on publicly because I still want to like revise and change a couple of things, like all this stuff, because stuff just piles up at Driveline. There's tons of different prongs of work to go on. And then there's like, there's not always like a direct money sign. The moment, like if I put on my saber paper, we don't net any dollars directly, right? Maybe it helps our clout and helps us land future contracts, all that stuff. And we've never been about just putting stuff out for money, but also like in this economy and in this context, there's more of an onus on that than ever. Like Mike in particular is very, stringent about not, like there's so many projects to work on, like I just mentioned, about us not funneling onto one project that potentially doesn't net us anything, right? So I think like one of the things that Dan and I had to do is we had to pitch like a way for this to push business in a facet of ways. And maybe it won't, I don't know. But there's a couple of things that we like took in account and have planned out as well. So it's not just kind of like, oh, this is what I did. This is cool. Check it out. I'm smart, or check it out. Like we spent a lot of time on this, because that is, it is tough to commit to that. And if that was the only reason we do things, we'd just be running out of time and we'd just be doing like a bunch of different projects in different avenues. But yeah, to kind of answer your question in an extremely roundabout way, I think it is. I'm excited to push more content out. We have stuff with D1 baseball that we're pushing that content out. PBR reports and everything should be out pretty soon. So I think the next couple months are going to be pretty big for the Driveline analytics side of things. And I'm just going to try to, rather than make another like brand name or logo, I'm just going to be slapping on Driveline Edge as much as possible on all these products. Yeah. Literally, as we're talking, a base game notification just popped up from York saying, saying to do add Driveline Edge logo to swing profile.
Powered by Driveline Edge, baby. I saw that on the dashboard.
Yeah. I threw the day 2 of the dashboard also brought some improvements. I threw a logo. I threw some more explanation. All this stuff. But yeah, I think the first thing York DM'd me the day after, or the day it was released, it's like, oh man, couldn't get a logo up there. I'm like, dude, I was like, I tried for like I said, because I haven't used Shiny since college, honestly. I hadn't used Shiny in 4 years. I mean, it's pretty user friendly. I got it up like with Melanie's help in like the course of a couple days, and I really only worked on it the day before. I made sure like all the hosting, all the logistics and stuff made sense. But yeah, I was like, I tried for 30 minutes, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to push this in time for the draft. So I think I'll like that, and that is like a good example of a kind of something we struggle with, right? Because we have a product that's good, and it may not be perfectly planned out. And we have at this point, we have like a larger company, we have a larger business, we have all these different projects, and people like playing this stuff out, and you see it yourself. And like sometimes stuff gets like bogged down, like your gauge tracking blog, all this stuff. But all the time we deal with stuff that's like, this is good to go. When are we releasing this? Oh, we're also releasing this. This might get lost in the shuffle. Oh, is this exactly perfect? Do we have the edge? Do we have the logo? Do we have like a, support at Driveline dropped in? Do we have all this stuff? Again, which is good. We should have all this stuff. But sometimes if you're going to be super harsh and strict about it, then you're also going to miss on like attention. Like, I don't know if we released that College War stuff, we released it the day after draft. I don't know how much attention it gets. Maybe it's more. I don't know. But at the time, like I definitely don't regret it. I don't regret going, oh man, I had 1,000 people like see it. But it was without the logo. Also, I didn't see. I don't think I had 1,000 people see it. At least not day one.
I saw all those clicks. There's a bunch of blog clicks, right?
Yeah.
I know. Even after on Monday when our last podcast was released, a bunch of people, like one of the hitting hets, like retweeted it and said something about College War, and then a bunch of people responded to it, and we got DMs asking like. Or like really excited about the war. And I feel like that's probably a pretty big like trend as far as analytics things go, like people in the industry like.
Yeah, no, it brings up a really interesting question, like I said, about just, I mean almost like to the point of turning this segment to like a business segment. But listen, man, you got a doorbell? I wonder if got some visitors, dog.
Go answer the door, bro.
No, I'm pretty sure it's just like the. I will if they ring it. I'm pretty sure it's just like someone dropping off a package.
Yeah.
It's an
bring him
ardent
up as a
fan.
guest.
Yeah, it's an ardent fan trying to get in the podcast. But no, I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm really happy with it, and I'll just say for any listeners, like there will definitely be a public follow up and a direction to what we do with it, and we have a ton of analytics firepower. Like Dan's a monster. We both work really well together. I think we're actually really good at divvying up resources as well. We worked with
especially now that you have resources to take advantage of.
Yeah, we've worked with like Besky and Melanie worked on this. We worked in the past with Tamp on a bunch of related stuff. And I think one of the things that makes us work really well is we're often on the same page and really good at just filling in the gaps. And, something I can do better, I do it. Something he can do better, he does it. And we're not worried or have any reservations outsourcing stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to get into the Changeup? Speaking of sabermetrics.
Yep. Yes, sir. And
you can share still, right?
Yeah. This actually, okay, I'll share now. And so this is a pretty good, well, I shouldn't even say really or pretty good because that kind of undersells it, I think. But yeah, with my X's of tabs there as well for viewing purposes. So this is an older piece by Harry Pavlidis,
you're sharing the wrong screen.
Oh, dude, I'm sharing my war code, bro. Take a screenshot. Take a screenshot.
We can take that out or leave it in.
Not, it's fine. Yeah. So this is it's an older piece by Harry Pavlidis, who is currently director of R&D at Baseball Prospectus. I don't know how much of these he really writes anymore, but I think I might have read this a while back, but I revisited it pretty closely for work actually for PBR, because for Prep Baseball Report we have a contract with them, and we're really excited about that as well. I was pretty involved in coming up with analytics snapshots for them that they'll basically, the moment they'll run big events, players will get their data collected on TrackMan and Blast. So it'd be TrackMan hitting and Blast for hitters, TrackMan pitching for pitchers. And then we have a report that, like I said, I helped devise, kind of spit out what we think is important. And we have tabular data, graphical data, and a lot of text data as well. We have a pitch engine, so to speak, a pitch feedback engine, where based on the pitches they have and the metrics those pitches have, we auto-generate notes to fill in. So saying okay, yeah, your pitch pairs well with your fastball because it has 12 inches of drop relative to your fastball. It's around a faster changeup, which means it'll generate more whiffs rather than grounders, stuff like that. And the reason I mentioned changeup is because this is directly related to this piece, which I think does a really good job of going into effectiveness of the changeups, because I think that's one of the pitches most casual fans are kind of confused about, right? What makes a good changeup. And I'm down, honestly, not to put you on the spot, but I'm down to hear if you have any, what would you think? What's your initial thought if you were to get asked what makes a good changeup?
I was about to say it's probably my biggest question mark as well, because I know curveballs, a lot of people are trying to get a good axis, good 12-6. Fastball is trying to be efficient, and try to get as good of a axis as possible. But changeups, I don't know anything about, and I think that it's probably my intuition tells me that a good change in speed matters, but I could see that one being easily debunked. But then something that has more horizontal movement than anything would be a better changeup, I would think.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting. And like I said, I think just your example of a pretty nuanced answer kind of speaks to a little bit of existing uncertainty, and again, the uniqueness of changeups. Very few people have similar changeups, whereas fastballs fastballs, very people also, I mean, there's tons of different fastballs as well, but if you were to tell someone what makes, like, if you're running some sort of black box algorithm, you know how to get a better result for the fastball. Just throw like 3 miles an hour on that velocity. That'll work the vast majority of times. Oh, someone throws a 95 mile an hour fastball with 8 inches of rise and 3 inches of run. What's like the quickest thing? Again, not developing a pitcher because it's not easy to add 3 miles to a fastball. But what's the quickest thing you can do to make that pitch scale up in whatever algorithm you're running, assuming it's a good one? You add 3 miles to the fastball, right? That's gonna heavily impact its effectiveness use. But if you had the same question for changeup, right? So you have 82 mile an hour changeup, 10 inches of break, laterally, 12 inches of draw, or 12 inches of rise. Oh, that's quite a bit of rise. Whatever it is, what makes that changeup better, right? That'd be a tougher question. And also one, honestly, you wouldn't really be able to answer without the fastball as well. I'd say in general, and the paper goes through this as well. Say in general, changeups like are often used like I said, as off-speed pairings to the fastball, and can be thrown for a similar trajectory, but will come in like much slower. Usually like an 8 to 12 mile an hour difference. And Pavlidis kind of goes in here in terms of there's 2 ways he really found by like clumping all the hitters at the time of this data. So this was published in 2013. So he went off mostly PitchFX data, but honestly, a lot of the accuracy and breaks was better on the later PitchFX years than the first couple StatCast years. But he talks about pitchers either developing a good changeup to get whiffs, or pitchers developing a good changeup to get soft contact grounders. And the amount of like side spin that a pitch has can kind of dictate like the arm side fade, and that like itself can be used as a separate pairing. But Pavlidis honestly focused mostly on the gap in velocity between the fastball and changeup, and the gap in like vertical movement between the fastball and changeup. So he talked about here like the smaller gap between fastball and changeups can lead to like grounders. And like a lot of times, like when the gap is too small, that hurts your ability to get whiffs. And
because you can like fool somebody, but they can still kind of adjust and make contact.
Yeah, a lot of this is like, there's some hypothetical links. A lot of this is like just basically clumping successful changeups from pitchers and then finding out the gaps like that permeated. So
not necessarily finding a cause in like from the hitter's perspective, just kind of like talking strictly like performance wise.
Yeah. I mean, he talks a little bit in it here. I mean, he mentions one of the things that he seemed to find was that the tail on the pitch, like the arm side fade or horizontal break, didn't seem to impact the outcome. Didn't seem to dictate whether someone had a successful changeup or not. People that like threw hard fastballs, like high velo fastballs, and had the larger gap were which makes sense, had the most successful outcomes, because that case the changeup is harder and there is a larger gap, so they got like soft contact grounders and whiffs. And again, like the larger gap between like especially when it came to vertical movement between the fastball and the changeup could lead to a lot of soft contact grounders. And here he got this is a averages table kind of the like good performers and so he basically clumped 4 different types of groups in here. So he clumped people that get a lot of whiffs and a lot of grounders, which is essentially the ideal medley for changeup success. People that don't get a lot of whiffs and don't get a lot of grounders. So again, probably the worst case scenario. People that get a lot of grounders and not a lot of whiffs, and then people that get a lot of whiffs and not a lot of grounders. And he kind of compared here the averages of their changeup, the gaps between their changeup and their fastball, the averages of their fastball, and the gap between their fastball vertical movement and their changeup vertical movement. So like I said, the highest the most successful group, the ones that had high whiffs and high grounders, had the hardest fastball thrown on average, while still having like a healthy gap between their changeup and fastball, and also a very healthy gap between their fastball vertical movement and changeup vertical movement. So like a hard singing changeup rather than one that rose quite a bit. So and then when you altered like kind of like related to the like the other similar group, except the fastball was not thrown as hard, so the gap was smaller, and the gap was smaller on the drop too. Like I said, the whiff rate dropped there, and they stuck to grounders. Then if the gap remains small, or sorry, if the fastball again wasn't thrown as hard, but the gap like widened a bit, then that was kind of like the worst of both worlds, low whiff rates and low ground ball rates. And then if the gap was kind of in that same like 8 to 11, 8 to 12 VO range, but with a larger change in vertical movement gaps, then they had the high whiff rate. So again, essentially, but best case scenario is you have the larger velo gap and larger vertical movement gap with your fastball, and you throw a hard fastball. That's money. That's probably best case scenario. You get whiffs and ground ball rates. If everything else is similar, but your fastball thrown less hard, you won't get as many ground balls. If the gap is widened a bit, but your fastball isn't thrown as hard, then you'll get, or if the gap is smaller, but your fastball isn't thrown as hard, then you'll get grounders and not whiffs. And if your fastball isn't thrown as small and the gap is bigger, then you won't get whiffs or ground balls. So again, like this is hopefully the visual helps. I'll also drop the link in the article, but I found this to be like, I think it's still one of the better papers out here, even though it's like it's almost over 7 years ago, but it helped quite a bit for me kind of coming up with text notes on ChangeUp specifically, because and that's the feedback I got from the PBR guys as well. A lot of players don't really know what to do on their changeups, you know. So like you can have, if you do have plus velocity on your changeup, like don't have the drop differential, it might not get it might not get grounders or whiffs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It really does matter on a couple factors. It matters like your own changeup velo, your changeup vertical movement, your fastball velo, your fastball vertical movement, and just how those two pair together. And even just bumping up one or the other based on your spin axis or whatever can heavily improve your changeups profile. So yeah,
So what
I found
on your notes, like on that generation for or like creating the text notes to help prescribe like changes in the changeup, what were the like things that it took into account? Was it everything, or were there two, or was there like one metric that assumed like unchangeable? Like since velocity, for example, is hard to change or hard to improve, if they had a velocity that was in this bucket, did you start to attack like a different thing? Like, okay, maybe slow down your changeup or try to get more, or like try to get less or more vertical break or higher vertical break on your fastball so that you can have a bigger gap in your changeup, because velocity is not as easy to change.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, first off, if you want to see what these notes say about your own pitches, just go to a PBR event and you'll get my notes back at you. But what I did, and also keeping in mind that these are for developing athletes, I didn't assume too much that, you know, things are unchangeable. And also one of the things that I'm personally, you know, this is kind of like a side note, but a lot of the value of these snapshots really hinge on what the data coming in is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a track and it's not calibrated, or if the pitches aren't tagged correctly, a lot of it's going to be very, very salad. So I've stressed that a bit. We'll continue to stress that, but it really hinges on like proper changeups being identified, you know, all of the break values being reported fairly correctly, spin axis being included, because we spend a lot of time giving like text recommendations based off spin axis, and that plays into our other visuals and everything. But yeah, so the first part I actually try to kind of follow this laid out model for the changeup. Like what camp does it profile in? Does it right off the bat? Does it profile as one that gets whiffs and soft contact grounders? Does it profile as one that gets whiffs but not a lot of grounders? A lot of grounders but not a lot of whiffs, or neither? You know, to kind of like give you right off the bat an idea of where you currently sit, and then like why is that? What's the drop differential? What's the velo differential for your fastball? And then after I did like more general like pitch analysis, like depending on how much you're like cutting the ball, does that impact? Oh man, I've been suppressing a sneeze for like the last 5 seconds. Has it look like that on camera? I'm just
no.
I just like I'm about to pass
I thought
out.
you were holding back a burp or something. I saw your face changing, but
yeah. So the text notes are, in my mind, much improved, and that's in part to previous like work done like this by Pavlidis, things that I validated myself running on our own StackAskDB and like exploring follow-up questions. It wasn't based contingently on this paper, but like I said, I really like this paper because it gives you a very clear idea of what changeups have profiled well and the factors that go into it. So I think specifically with changeups, a lot of that, like I said, has been a little bit more cryptic or not as clear, and hopefully that'll stop being so in the future.
is some of this incorporated into that how to throw a changeup? Because we have a blog series on that, right?
Yep. And that's all TAMP. Yeah, we have a couple that have been published. A couple more still to be published. We have like the 6 main pitches, but that's like a really good, really valuable blog series as well. I think, especially it goes heavily into the grips as well. I don't know if you read them, but he shows a quick GIF and picture of the grip rotating on all axes. It's like someone's actual grip on the baseball to give you an idea, and what we vlogged as grips for players.
That's cool. When do you think we'll be able to start doing some analysis on the the grip log? Is that do we still have to just get a bunch more data points once we open up?
Yeah, good question. I need to look at it again because I think we have about like 300 log grips, but I don't know what the distribution is. You know, I think we could probably. I mean, we haven't been collecting too much data. Oh, I should actually check with the AZ guys to see if they're still collecting data on grips.
Do you know if we're getting paired edger and biomech footage?
We should be, because I reached out to Medic and I think he like ran a couple. But honestly, that's a really good point. A really good example of the Driveline R&D podcast leading directly to productive work conversations. Because I'm just gonna follow up with them right after this and follow up on that. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Sweet. Yeah, that was good. Hopefully I'll be able to improve my changeup a little bit. Would you be down? You should do like a year of training. Not that you need it or anything. But we should do a men's league once shit opens up again. I thought I was going to be too scared. A men's league baseball.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm down. I mean, do you have a glove? Do you have a glove at your place?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got plenty for you.
We could even we could play like you can start playing catch on a regular basis like next weekend stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now the weather's getting better.
Yeah.
Has it been raining there still?
It was sprinkling a little bit earlier today. I don't know if it still is, but the last couple of days were so nice, man.
Hell yeah.
So nice. I played tennis with Max, went and ate like ice cream after.
Where do you guys play at?
The court really close by. I think
to your guys' place?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I haven't been there. There's one right by me at Lincoln Park.
Yeah. No, I mean either place. I'm down to run out, because I'm gonna gas my legs out a little bit so you can be on my level beforehand. Run to Lincoln Park, play some catch. It's gonna be fun. Yeah. You're getting in this Sunday at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay, tight. Yeah, that should be able.
You said the breweries are open now too? All of them, or just like a couple?
Definitely not all of them. I think a good bit of them though.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that would have been a tight. I mean, yeah, I'm still in on. I mean, we won't do it this week because we already filmed this, but I'm still in on filming an R&D podcast from a brewery.
Yeah.
just be telling everyone like, yo, shut up, yo, our mics are picking everything up.
Yeah. That's funny. All right, guys. I think we're gonna wrap it there. Thanks for listening.
See you guys next week. Peace.